Welcome to the First Customers Podcast. Today, we have Mark Ross Smith with us. He's the CEO and founder of StatusMatch.com. His company has brought over $1 billion in new customer value to major airlines like Emirates, Lufthansa, Air Canada, Frontier Airlines, Spirit Airlines, and more. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
It's fantastic to be here. I'm actually very excited to talk about airlines and customer acquisition today. Got some good stories.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. How'd you get your first customers for StatusMatch.com?
So we launched this business in 2020, which is probably the worst time to launch an aviation-related startup in the history of humanity. The logic was, there's a few guys, three of us that founded it. All three of us had worked for airlines in sort of management roles, so we understood the industry a lot. And loosely, the logic was, in 2020, airlines were in a world of pain, right? They're all just bleeding cash like crazy. It's like, how can we help the airlines come back, accelerate their recovery faster? And we thought, what's the one thing that when we worked at airlines, we wish someone had pitched us as a product, and Status Match as a concept. That's what we wish people had pitched us, and that's what we created. I'll get to that in a second. But how we got our first customer specifically, in the years prior to that, I have a blog, traveldatadaily.com. It's free. It's just thought leadership kind of content, right? So I was publishing stuff based on a previous business I had, which was in telco social network that I had an exit from. And I was thinking, there's all these great things that telcos are doing to make money out of customers. And I thought airlines could learn from this. There's a bunch of things. So I started basically just blogging it online. Hey, you could do this. Hey, you could do this. You could sell this data. You could, this kind of stuff. That started getting a lot of attention. So when we launched this business, I was, like any ultra tech geek, I've got an email list, right? So I'm sending out emails every time there's a new post, and I'm stalking that email. Who's opening the emails? Who's clicking the emails? And there was one particular employed in airline, Tommy Langhauser at Frontier Airlines. He was opening all the emails, which means he was reading, which means he was seeing my name, right? I'd never met the guy. And hi, if you're listening, Tommy, hi. And never met him. But I forget he's reading my content. So at least knows that I'm not an idiot, right? He knows that I know what I'm talking about because I talk about airline loyalty, monetization, commercialization stuff. So I hit him up and I said, hey, mate, you read my content, got this great idea. We've got a prototype. Do you want to try it? And he said, not really. So a couple of months later, what that had done, that had sowed a seed in his head, right? Because at airlines, they've got a million different things going on at one time. And when something becomes a priority, it's ultra urgent for them. Like they bring out their little black book and they go, who can I contact to help me get this online right now? Right. And it was one of those moments. He had to get something online in customer acquisition. Who do I call? This Mark guy, he's pretty intelligent. He's not a total idiot. So I'll contact him. And from there, it moved extremely fast, right? And so so our first B2B customer was Frontier Airlines. Again, this was the end of 2020, the worst time in history, middle of the pandemic. They were looking to acquire new customers to fill planes, just to keep the airline going, really, because there's a lot of folks just not flying. So, traditionally getting airlines as customers is extremely hard. I know companies where they've got a 6 to 8 year sales pipeline just to get these sort of brands on board, because it can be really difficult. And yet it seemed to be almost too easy for us. It just came like magic. It was I want to say a few months, like maxed between idea building something and then having a prototype and then signing a contract with them and going live.
Wow. Okay, so what was the specific thing that he called you about to solve?
So it was about he wanted customer acquisition, right? So in the I'll give you the 101 on what a status match is. That'll give some context here. So status matching as a concept has been around for about 35, 36 years. And what it is, so imagine you've got like a silver, gold, platinum status with an airline or a hotel, right?
Okay.
These people represent about 5% of an airline's database, but about 30 to 40% of total revenue for an airline. So they are the single most valuable customers an airline can have as an aggregate group. Airlines, funny enough, want more of these customers, right? These people fly business class. They're in, a high yield premium economy class cabin. They spend more. They spend more frequently. They buy all the ancillaries during the airline lounges. They get the credit card. They're doing all the right actions. Airlines want more. So Status Match is the cheapest, fastest way for them to get more of these customers. The idea is, let's say you have a gold or platinum status with, say, American Airlines, and Frontier Airlines, wants you to try them out. So you've got status with American. You like flying American, great airline. You like the lounges. You like the boarding experience, the food, all this, the miles, all this kind of stuff. You have no interest in flying Frontier Airlines at all because you're hooked on American Airlines, on the alliance. It benefits all the perks you get. So the way to get you to try a new airline, Frontier dangles this little carrot over here and says, hey, we'll give you the equivalent status you have with American over here with Frontier. Straight off the bat. You don't have to fly at all. We'll just give it to you. So here's a gold equivalent with us. You getting it? That Status Match. Yeah. So if you've got status on an airline, status drives behavioral change in people, right? Status actually outside of airlines, like, why do people buy fast, expensive cars? It's a status thing. It's not because it's the most efficient way to get around, because it's definitely not.
Right.
It's a status thing. You look good, you feel good. Same with airlines. When you've got that gold or platinum status, you got the, on the bag, on your bag tag, people see it and go, you're a platinum member. You're cool. You're better than me. So we laugh, but it drives billions and billions of dollars of airline tickets worldwide. So it's the cheapest, fastest way for airlines and hotels to acquire new high value customers. So instead of them, get corporate sales teams doing dinners and drinks all the time, trying to schmooze people into flying them, or running, Google AdWords or any kind of digital marketing, offering a status match is by far the most effective way to do it. And so we basically built a process around that, to a structured process to put people through to help airlines acquire these customers.
Okay. Now I see the genius of it. That's amazing. So does that mean that you can build up status kind of across all the airlines, or is it like you have to switch and officially kind of say, you're my new official airline I'm going to choose, and so all your status stuff comes over at that point?
You could just pick and choose, right? So you keep in our example, you've got your American Airlines platinum status, and then we come along and say, here's a Frontier, maybe Spirit Airlines gold status. And the airlines are very different. American Airlines, and your experience with American Airlines and Spirit are, well, maybe they're not these days. They should be very different. So you would keep your American Airlines platinum status. So you keep doing that. I mean, you have to keep flying to keep it, or spending to keep your status with American. And with Spirit, the idea is, here's your gold status. Try it. Just try the product. Just take a flight, see if you like it or not. If you do, come back again and again and again and again. Maybe you just keep it in your back pocket just in case. Yeah. And generally you get it for a year. And within that time, you've got to requalify on merit to keep it yourself, as per whatever rules that program would have. So it's brand introduction for the airline.
Gotcha.
How else is someone like a Spirit or like another airline, how else are they going to unhook folks from the brand that they're really, tethered onto? Because if you're flying a big legacy carrier, there's a process. You know how things work. You know that on a Friday night when you're flying home, Judy at check-in is going to check you in, and she's there with a smile and say, "Welcome back." There's this process. You know what aircraft you're on. You're in seat 5D. It's your favorite. There's going to be 3 snacks. People like routine, and how do you break that routine? How do you get them out of that routine of talking to Judy at the airport every Friday night to go try a new brand? Status is huge. Status actually drives more customer behavior with airlines than price. So you could say that, it's free to fly this other airline. People still won't do it because they're so hooked on their loyalty benefits. And the logic that folks use is stuff like, well, I get lounge act. I can go into the lounge before the flight. And so people overestimate what they're going to use, right? So I'll go into the lounge and that's going to save me $50 in airport food because I'm going to eat all these snacks in the lounge. I'm going to have 8 drinks and that's worth, to calculate, $100 to me before the flight. And I'm going to get my miles. And I need more miles because my wife tells me I need to get more because I have to fly to Paris in first class next year for our anniversary. There's all these totally illogical things people think. And all of underpinning all that is their airline status.
So how did you and the potential client come to the conclusion that this was the thing to build? Because you said he just reached out about, I just want customers. And you went through a couple months process of figuring out this idea. I guess you're in the space, you're blogging, you have a following, but was this something that you'd been thinking about, or what brought you guys to this specific idea?
So, good question. So I'm Australian, and 2013, 14, I moved to Hong Kong. I relocated to Hong Kong. And at the time, I was ultra top frequent flyer with Qantas, Australian airline. And when I moved to Hong Kong, I asked Cathay Pacific, the local airline there, for a status match because the term status match is not a new thing at all. I asked them for a status match and they said no. I'm like, what? Come on, guys. I'm this uber top tier over here. Throw me a bone and I'll throw you some money, basically. I'll start flying you, basically. They said no. That's really what kickstarted this whole thing. Because at the time, I just sold my business. Basically got unemployed at that point. What am I going to do next? I had a bit of money, a bit of time. And that's what really started the process of, I need to fly cheap. How do I keep status with an airline, without a job? Because it gets down expensive.
Yeah.
So I started attending a lot of industry events at that time, just paying my way in. Just, I had nothing to sell. I didn't work for any brand, just to learn why airlines wouldn't do this, why airlines wouldn't just freely give out status matches to try and lure in new customers, especially people that want to engage with the brand. And fast forward a few years, I ended up landing a job with an airline running a loyalty program, Malaysia Airlines. And I ran their first status match, above the line status match campaign internally. Okay. And it was a disaster.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we got a bunch of people, but there was all sorts of issues. It took a long time to upgrade people. There was fraud issues with, people photoshopping and saying, "Oh, look, I'm a diamond member with this airline. No, buddy, you're not." Yeah. Microsoft Paint skills suck. Go back and try again. So had a lot of issues with that. And it was just not a great customer experience. So the idea was right, average customer experience. And what that meant is, when people think of the brand, they were having, probably for the first time ever, they were thinking this brand's kind of average because they're not coordinated, they're not doing things quickly. And so when I left the airline, I thought, there's something in this. There's something in creating a really beautiful, seamless brand onboarding experience for high value customers. If someone's flying business or first class, they've either got a really good job, they're working for a really good company, or they've got a bit of cash to burn. They're the type of customers you want flying you. Some of these people, they fly. It's like, do I fly first class or private? So for a commercial airline, you want them flying you, not flying private over here. So how do you again lock them into that?
Okay. So you had that experience creating the first status match kind of incentive program at the Malaysian Airlines. And so was this years later when this prospect who'd been reading your newsletter or your blog, they reached out to you, and you're like, "Oh, I've got an idea."
Pretty
And
much. Yeah,
okay,
it was a couple of years later. Obviously, when 2020 hit, the world changed and some things accelerated and other things put on the back burner for airlines. Generating cash flow was straight to the top of their list. Like,
right,
how do we make money? Like, we'll do anything. We need to save jobs, right? So because a lot of airlines were laying off staff at that point, a bunch especially in North America, were effectively mortgaging their loyalty businesses, and that's interesting. The world discovered at that point that some of these loyalty program businesses had higher valuations than the airline themselves. So
wow,
what that meant is the loyalty businesses internally got a lot more power, political sort of clout internally to do more and be more aggressive on partnering with new firms, running new offers, new campaigns, new things to get people interested in the brand. People obviously, I mean, like the airline credit cards, you own them, like the American,
yeah,
the Delta, those kind of things. Yeah. So those businesses of those credit cards are worth phenomenal amounts of money to the airlines. Absolutely extreme.
yeah.
It's like a telephone number with a lot of zeros on the end. It's
I believe it.
extremely valuable. So anything that dovetails into that loyalty business of selling miles or getting people to fly, airlines get really interested in. And so Status Match, it wasn't a brand new concept you would think. It wasn't like some crypto blockchain web 3.0 AI
Right.
solution where, it's a bit of a leap for airlines to do that. This was something they'd already been doing themselves, but not that well for a few decades. And so, we just, I talk about how we actually don't have it. We have no big data, no machine learning, no AI, we have none of this stuff. And yet we've been profitable since day one. We got a bunch of big airline brands. We're expanding. We're doing pretty well. It's because we're just solving a basic customer need that's out there. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
We're not reinventing anything. We're just helping airlines take that baby step in their evolution to engage customers better.
But are you using like software? Is it actually like a web app that they have to interact with, or is that just for getting leads? Like, because I know that you have a website.
Yeah, I mean, his website is a web app. There's a lot that powers behind it, but
Okay.
there's pretty sophisticated tech stack there, but there's no crazy, you know,
Yeah.
your 800 servers crunching numbers, doing
Yeah.
things in the back end. It's a pretty straightforward setup, I think. And I mean, to be fair, why would you want anything more technical than you need it to be? As a startup,
Sure.
it's hard to
Yeah.
justify some of these extra resources. You get all these cloud providers trying to throw free credits at you to move all your stuff, and then you get addicted to using it. It's like, oh, these bills get pretty expensive. So
Right.
I think part of our success is just keeping it super simple, especially on the tech side. Keep it super simple. Just do exactly what the airlines need and want. Keeping it fast, and then just a really slick customer experience. I think a really good customer experience is something I think that airlines don't always get right. So when they
Yeah.
see what could be out there, like how good it could be, they're a bit like in awe of it. Like, oh, that's really nice. That's what our customers want.
Yeah. So you got this first prospect. You're talking to them, and you say, "Hey, I'll build some software." Did you have any software experience, or did you hire a little team, or did they like front you some money so that you could build the app? Talk a little bit about that, kind of how it went from idea to actual prototype.
I wish they paid us. Would have been nice. Um, we structured something with them that worked pretty well. Obviously, getting a big airline brand as your first client is a big deal as a startup.
Yeah.
It's worth a lot to us. So you do whatever it takes to make it work. And there was people's necks on the line if we didn't make it work as well. So it had to work, right? We built it internally. It was two of us that worked on it initially, myself and one of our other guys. And that was based off, years ago, I'd learned, gosh, about 20 years ago now, I got into, basic web development stuff. Like my first job, I remember my first job in the year 2000, early 2000, I was an HTML developer, right?
Nice.
Because if you knew HTML, you were like,
yeah.
If you, they didn't want to hire someone that could use front page, Microsoft front page. Remember those days? So if you knew actually how to code, wow, man, you were in. So
yeah, you were a hacker.
Totally. You know IRC? Wow, you're amazing. So back at those, I sort of learned a bit from there, and I learned PHP, MySQL, that kind of stuff back then. And it's like once you think like a programmer, it's kind of stays with you. And so picking up other languages is a little easier. And so we hacked together our first version of it. It was effectively a white label version for the airline. Still online today, actually. frontierstatusmatch.com. Check it out.
Okay, nice.
And we created that, and it worked. Hooked up payments and all sorts of stuff into it. It worked really well. It was fast, ultra success. The airline, and said, we need to do this again. We need to do it again. Bigger. It was a campaign at the time. Let's do it bigger and better next time. We did exactly that. Bigger, better. About a year later for them, we ran another campaign. And so, we built this internally, which I think is good because we built it from the mindset of being developers, but also having experience of working at airlines. So, it's like if they're not listening, you're coding, you're doing your thing, right? And you think, hey, what if you could do this? Or shouldn't we be checking for this when people do it? You're thinking these things from a development perspective, but you're also thinking it from like an airline management perspective. Like, hey, they would like to see this kind of data, so we should store that as well. We should store this in this other table over here because they're going to just these. I mean, these are tiny little things, but you don't think. But when you're creating, you think about this on the fly, which you otherwise wouldn't if you kind of spec'd it out and had someone else develop it, because they would just be, this is what I'm creating and nothing else. So, it worked out really well with Frontier there. And it was a huge success. They got a lot of great media off the back of it as well. And it was the first time that we traditionally a status match like this had been free. So the airline would say, here's gold status for free. Go try it because they know you're a high value customer. Okay. We put fees in front of that. So what we said to you is, well, we're not going to give you gold status for free. You pay $50 as like an application fee, and then we'll make it work. And that's how the economics of the commercials came into play with the airline. And low cost airlines, funny, don't like paying out money to people. So going to them with a proposition where there was no cost to them to work with us as well. Definitely no cost, no upfront. Effectively means they could acquire new customers, high value customers at no cost, which pretty attractive.
Making money directly from the customers, they're paying you, so you just need the airline to agree to do it with you.
Yeah, exactly. So the airline gets all the upside of these folks. Some of these folks go on to get the credit cards with the airline. They spend hundreds, thousands, could be millions on the cards. They start taking flights with the airline. They try it once, and this is not as bad as I thought. I'll try again. I'll take my family next time, and I've got to buy the bags and the seat selection. So it gets people into the ecosystem that otherwise would never even think about it at all.
And you guys get basically like a one-time transaction fee for just introducing that relationship, or do you have ongoing fees per customer?
Most of the time, it's a one-time thing.
Okay.
We call it an application fee, and those fees vary by brands we work with. There's some brands where we can charge more just because it's a bigger brand and there's more demand for it. Sometimes it's a little less. What we have found, this is very interesting. Prior to us creating this, status matching as a concept was free. No one charged for it because it was just if you want my business, you'll do it for free kind of thing.
Yeah.
We came along, we put fees on everything. What that made changed the dynamic out of everything. Firstly, it meant airlines could get real expertise without cash outlay, because there's a model funding the expertise that's coming in. So that's us, right? That's the first part. The second part is the people that were going through a process that were doing this were much more serious customers. So there was a higher quality customer the airline was getting at the end of the day. And the third thing, it created a revenue stream for the airline, right? So, some of these airlines, we might revenue share in some different ways with the airline as well. So they're actually getting paid to get new customers.
Right.
Pretty attractive,
So,
I think, for an airline,
yeah,
especially in 2020 when you need cash.
For sure. You're turning a cost, there's usually a customer acquisition cost into a new source of revenue.
Exactly. And a lot of this so the book Blue Ocean Strategy. It's not new. It's been around forever. It's a hard read for anyone who hasn't read it, but really, really good examples of, changing the value curve of products and businesses. And that's exactly what we did in this business. We took something that was traditionally free, put big fees on it. And what it actually meant is more people did it. That's the funny thing. Normally free gets volume. No. Paid actually got more volume. So I was like, what? How high can the fees go then? Is the higher the fee, the more you get? Like it's totally illogical, but worked out really well.
That's interesting, because maybe especially it kind of solves a few problems. Like, you reduce spam because you're charging a fee, kind of like what the logic of what Elon Musk recently did with Twitter for the blue check mark. You got to pay an $8 fee or whatever the fee is now. And so it kind of reduces spam and that, like, photoshopping issue you were talking about, because there's less people who are going to put out that $50 for something that they know that is, it's not legit what they're trying to do. And the customers that are in this target market are people who are used to paying more for higher quality. And so it's like it almost validates the service and legitimizes it by having to pay for it.
You get it, 100%. And when people do pay for it, it's kind of like Amazon Prime, where if you pay for it, you're like, well, I've got to use it now.
Right.
So what happens? You end up spending even more that spending unnecessarily, which is, maybe not good for you, but great for the brand. If you're locking yourself in, which is exactly what these brands want. They want that loyalty, whether it's you're trapped is not the right word, but you're more focused on one brand than splitting your business between two or three.
It's a really interesting business model. So you got Frontier Airlines, and so what was your internal marketing strategy for getting new airlines and getting in front of other airlines?
Good question. We've doubled down on content and media. So we rewind to 2020, 2021. I live in Asia, which was locked down effectively, so I couldn't travel. Even if I wanted to, it was just far too difficult. So there was no events. So I couldn't, go to these events, speak on stage and say how great this is. So it was all webinars, content online, like text, videos, LinkedIn. So we doubled down. We just hammered the heck out of content, thought leadership stuff, not selling, very rarely actually selling our product. So if we, had video here, right? So in the middle, if you got your product in the middle, we never focused on that. We focused on everything else around it. So we would talk about why customer acquisition is important, or what benefits airlines and hotels had from having more of these customers. What was the impact that had? Never talked about, hey, deal with us and we'll do this. Never that. Always about all the other stuff, because the thought leadership that goes around it, that's shareable content. That's stuff where if you work at a big brand, you could get an article or a video, like a short snippet of video. You could send it to your boss and say, hey, check this out. Because he'll watch it for 10 seconds or something like that.
Okay.
So we had a lot of
creating
success.
Content that solved your customers' problems, other problems, not just the problem you're specifically solving, but the problems that your target audience had. You made content around those, the other things as well.
exactly. Never directly about what we actually do, though. Everything else except that. But everyone, it's kind of, we do everything else, and then it fills in. Everything feeds into what our core product, which is customer acquisition for airlines and hotels. We found that worked really well. So then we obviously, when the world opened up, we started sponsoring events, going to events, speaking on stage, doing a lot of this. We still do quite a lot of it. It works very well. High visibility in the industry, always being there, always being top of mind, top of So when these brands are ready to do something like this, we're there. We're the logical, vendor supplier for them to reach out to and say, well, I mean, you guys are we are the experts, but hey, you guys, your stuff because we've been around for so long. Like, think typical big brand. They're not always that interested in dealing with small organizations, and so how do you make yourself look bigger than you might otherwise be? And there's the whole fake it till you make it thing. But I guess some doesn't really apply to us because we got a lot of traction pretty fast. But I mean, saying that, it's still a struggle. It's not unicorns and rainbows and all these brands lining up. I mean, there's a few, but it's not crazy. And this is, so we've still had a lot of struggles, and this is coming from us as co-founders working industry previously. So if you had not, like, if we didn't have that experience of being in the industry previously, it would have been incrementally harder to do this. So I don't envy people that are coming in a little blind to it. It's a even bigger challenge.
Yeah. Okay, so putting out a lot of content. So content marketing is a core part of your strategy, thought leadership, going to events, holding, sponsoring events. After Frontier, who was the next customer? Or how did they reach out, or did you reach out? It sounds like the first customer is more of inbound, and then you guys solve their problem by creating this solution. Is that where most of your customers come from? It's more inbound, them contacting you, or do you guys also do like outbound, like actively, aggressively trying to get a hold of somebody at X airline and, get a meeting and that kind of thing? Or do you just wait for them to contact you when they're ready?
Good question. Now it's a little both. We've like tripled down effectively on what's worked for us because we have a great voice, we have a great brand, a great message in the industry. We don't do hard sales. So events, if we're speaking event, we won't sell our product. We'll sell everything else except the product that we do. So we'll talk about how they can do all these other things or things we're seeing in the industry, or here's 5 tips to do X. And none of it will be about our company at all. But what it does, it elevates them, us and their minds about who we are, what we do, all these great benefits that come along with that. So we continue doing that because that's great. Yes, you are right. We started doing more called direct marketing, more of a targeted approach. Some of these brands, they work on sales, like sales cycles, so they don't always have budgets available for certain things. They're not always ready to work with us. We just want to be there at the right time. We don't do things like participate in RFPs or anything. Not interested in that. Actually, I was on an event just last week talking about this exact topic about other startups, and they were sharing experiences of how difficult it is to sell their product into airlines and how they are handling it. And one of them said, Mark, how do you deal with RFPs? And I said, I'm not interested at all in them. We're the best. And so if they think there's someone else they should deal with, go deal with them. But we are by far just not interested. Because once you go, it's a really, once you go into that cycle competing with others, like if you really are good, you sort of suppressed a bit in what you're doing, So we try and stay away from that and constantly change and innovate our product. So what we created 2 years ago, is a little bit different to what we do today. There's been iterations, obviously, of the software over time,
right?
And a lot of it's actually to make our clients more money, make it faster for them. So I think it's important for, especially brands in our position. We're still a startup technically, to constantly innovate, constantly constantly evolve the product. Not to the point where you're creating new features and it's just too much, but to the point where it makes sense for who you're selling it to. So we've done pretty well at that. To the original point here about direct marketing, a little bit more of it, because we do. We do more of it now. It's a new thing for us, because we've been so focused on content that, sort of going on a harder sell, flying somewhere specifically for one meeting, this kind of thing is a little bit new for us. But I think it's worked quite well. We get a lot of, you catch up for a phone call. It's like, oh, I saw you on this podcast. Yeah. I saw you on this thing. Right. I read your article on this. Actually, just last week, no kidding, this is a real story. Me and my partner, we're walking out of a hotel in London, and we're getting a taxi to go to this other hotel for a dinner. And this taxi happens to pull up in front of the hotel. This guy gets out, and he's got some bags. He's clearly checking in. Gets out, he stands, and the first thing he says is, "Oh, you're Mark Ross Smith." No idea who this guy is. And then he turns to my business partner and says, "Oh, you're Phil," who's my business partner. Like, what the heck? I don't live here in London. Just totally random. He goes, "Oh, I'm Ollie." His name was. I work with it. I do this and this hotel was quite a few blocks from where we were going for this event, right? So it wasn't like it was the closest place or everyone was there. And I thought, this is nice. This is kind of all that, getting real life recognition for all the content and all the stuff we're putting out there. I'd never met the guy. And we're seeing a few of these loops closing like that, where, people come up to you and say, I read this, I saw this, oh, I liked how you did this, all right, these kinds of things. And so that's kind of evidence to us that has worked.
Yeah, for sure. You're becoming famous within the niche of the people who are paying attention to what you're doing.
Exactly. I mean, it's a small niche. It's not like, it's not a big celebrity out there, but like within that very small group of maybe a few hundred people around the world. Yes.
That's awesome. So you've kind of got two target customers. You've got the airlines themselves, and then the people who are wanting to take flights and that you're wanting to convert to these status match programs. When they sign up, when an airline signs up with you, do you also do like a marketing campaign or something to drive them to is it a status match page on your site or something like that? Or do they just send their marketing dollars that direction? Or what's the kind of marketing logistics there of how you run one of these campaigns?
This is a good question. Traditionally, airlines would have put up a page on their website and say, send us an email with a screenshot of your gold status with this airline, and we'll, 4 to 6 weeks, we'll process it, which is terrible. Really, really terrible. You can't track it. There's no, anyway, I won't bitch about airlines and what they've been doing previously. So we generally create like a white label page, like a landing page for these brands. So it's their brand, their look and feel, their brand style guidelines. It's theirs effectively. We host it. We do everything else. And so the airline traditionally would send out, a press release, something to that effect, and promote it. No cost channels in there, earn media. And so they go do their thing because they're an airline. They've got totally different contacts and ways of doing things than we do, which is good. Then we go do our thing, all the below the line stuff. So we know, all the industry, it's like 120 industry bloggers, we contact them all. We've got relations with a lot of them, some other media partners, forums, business travel website. We kind of go do the deals that airlines can't or won't do as well. Sometimes they're just not set up for it.
Yeah.
It's like if you work a big company and you're trying to spend any money at all on media, like imagine the red tape you've got to go internally, you've got to go through to do that, right? This could be a 3-month process, right? With
for sure
10 different approvals and, we don't have the budget. We've got to wait till next quarter to unlock this monopoly money. We won't pay for another 6 months after that anyway. So we just cut straight to the chase. Go do it. I mean, there's media deals that we'll contact someone and we're live that day or the next day. You know how in our mind that's how it should be done. Very, very fast, very agile. Test and learn. Test, see if it works. If it doesn't work, move on. So we bring this sort of marketing piece to it as well, and that drives a lot more people into the airline brand that otherwise wouldn't have seen these kind of messages. So putting money behind it in paid media, in addition to earned media that an airline might get through traditional channels, I think this combination works really well. So in that respect, I think this is an example where a big brand working with a small organization is a very good relationship. They do what they do really well and like keep doing that, and then we do what we do, go out and do that really well. And the combination of these means you cover pretty much everything you need to or you can in a timely manner as well.
So the airline, do they pay you in addition to the fee that you get so that you can run all these marketing campaigns, or you just say, well, we're going to make revenue from this, so we're going to take some of that potential revenue of these conversions and use it for our marketing budget?
There's been a bit of both.
Okay.
So sometimes they'll put some dollars into it. Sometimes we take a chunk. Sometimes we take a risk and we'll go out and just do deals that make sense. I mean, obviously in line with their brand. There's a lot of caveats here. It's not just us cowboys out there doing our thing.
And who are the roles at the airlines that are your target customer? Who are the ones that would make this decision to sign up for a program like this with you?
Generally a loyalty team.
The loyalty team.
So the loyalty marketing, commercial, these kind of folks, which in the last few years have got a lot more power at the airlines. Like I mentioned, the loyalty programs. Like if you want to pitch something to an airline, and it makes sense, you go to the loyalty people because they're designed, they're set up to make money. Whereas if you go to like a revenue management or the Wi-Fi or the seats or the in-flight food or all these different areas, like they're just seen as cost centers, right? So you go into loyalty if you've got a really good idea, a really good product, something that makes sense, especially if you can pay the money. They're actually designed to take your money, so a lot easier to deal with. So they take money, that's great. Next best thing is free for them.
Right. And so that's like an extension of the marketing department, or is it just totally separate at these big airlines like this? There's just a whole loyalty department specifically. Generally
intertwined. Some of the big airline brands, the loyalty department can be hundreds of people. Some of the smaller ones, I've seen teams as small as 3. Some as, well, actually one I guess is the smallest. Anywhere between 1 and 500-600 people. That can be quite big for a loyalty. Keep in mind, the loyalty department can be worth more than the whole airline itself in terms of valuation, right? So to the point where, in 2021, I believe, the first one was United Airlines. They effectively mortgaged their loyalty program for $5 billion to secure a government loan. Again, with the federal government, they secured $5 billion, but the valuation was nearly $30 billion. Just the loyalty. So this is not the planes, the pilots, the fuel, all this. None of that. Just the mileage plus program, and what that meant, it was worth about 2.5 times what the market capitalization of the company of the entire United Airlines was. Just that one little division. So there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of money there. And so, if you can tap into that piece of the airline, I think what I've learned in, having a few startups is being as sort of niche as possible, sort of really drilling down, just owning the heck out of this one little piece. That's all you need. You don't need this big, giant, generic thing that does everything. It's just too hard. You got too much competition. But if you just sort of drill down and go really, really, just own the heck out of your one little piece of the world,
Right.
You can do really well at it.
Awesome. I think that's a great place to end it, man. Niche down as much as possible. I think you've kind of defined this content marketing strategy that's, you could call it literally beating around the bush, uh, and not ever, focusing in on exactly what you're doing. You literally just beat around the bush with all your content that you put out, and kind of create this kind of gravity of attention slowly that focuses in on, as they're reading all these other helpful things, they'll notice, oh, this is from Status Match. This is the Status Match guys again. You're building up that brand and that goodwill in your niche market. And I guess that's for the actual. Are you producing more content for the flyers or for the airlines?
You're bang on here. I put a post on LinkedIn the other day, and it was a picture of a first class seat. I'd just flown back from London last week, and it was on Emirates. And so I just put this picture. It's just a subtle, like, of the boarding pass. My boarding pass says first class, and it's the plane in the background. It looks nice, and it's like, had a great event. Looking forward to coming home. All this kind of stuff. Oh no, I said I slept the entirety of my flights. It's like, did I waste my experience by not going to the bar and drinking $1,000 bottle of champagne on the flight? Did I waste it by sleeping the entire flight? So who is this aimed at? Is this aimed at airlines or travelers? I don't know. I think it's a bit of both. And did I mention Status Match in that post? No.
Right.
But it gets a lot of engagement, and I got probably almost 10 messages off the back of that post, from two big airline brands as well. Wow. So it's, I think,
because it's in your bio, like it's always under your name on all the social platforms. So you're getting kind of this subtle branding every time you get engagement.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's a traveler. Even if you work for an airline, you're still a traveler. Well, hopefully you are if you work for an airline, because you're getting cheap flights. Like, everyone wants to go somewhere. Everyone's like, I need to go to X. There's somewhere I need to go. I've always wanted to, I don't know, climb mountains. I've wanted to see the pyramids. I want to go see the Eiffel Tower. I want to go to Asia and see the I want to street food in Penang. I want there's always someone's got something on their list. So travel's sort of ingrained in us. It's in our DNA. And when you see, I guess is like why Instagram, they put their big photos of all their travel stuff, and people look at, it's like, it's aspirational. That'll be me one day. I'll get there. So there's a bit of that as well.
Right. I think there's another startup in here that you could build called like Status Make or something for us with no status who want status, who want some kind of airline status to try out, because I haven't traveled nearly enough to have any kind of airline status. So I definitely have that. Hey, I want to go see all these things, but without the status to even transfer.
My friend, I am working on that already. So
are you serious?
Stay tuned.
We're in sync.
It's a really good point you make, because there is millions of people out there that don't have status on an airline. But once you've tried it, once you've had a taste of it, you don't want to let it go. Right. Sure. So it's when you arrive at the airport, you're not checking in the big, long, snaky coach line. You're going straight to the first class line. It's a nice red carpet. Judy's there to welcome you. Welcome back. Great. You're one of our most loyal customers. I've moved you up to, the better seat today. You were in 2A. I put you in 1A. It's a much better seat. It's just these small things, but they make the world of difference. And then it's like, so look, the TSA's line's a bit long today, so I'm just going to take you through the special VIP line. Don't tell anyone,
Wow.
There's that, and then there's especially in North America, if you're not in like those first one or two groups to board the aircraft, you can say goodbye about putting your stuff in an overhead bin. So having that platinum status or whatever, it gets a bit addictive. You start enjoying the perks, you get used to it, you get comfortable, you want more of it. And I think, when you try it out, there's part of your internally, and you strive to want to keep it. So you'll try it once. How do I keep this platinum status? What does it take? Oh, I just need to do 74 flights. I just need to do this. I only need to spend $15,000. It's like, it's totally worth it. You don't understand. I get to go in the lounge before the flight. It's totally worth $15,000 to have this $20 bottle of wine before my flight.
So it'll be kind of like a free trial of the status.
There could be something, it comes up. I think, there's a bunch of folks out there that don't know what they're missing, and
for sure,
I think there's an opportunity to do something. So I'll sign up one of our first customers when we do that, and then that's like, you could do your own podcast, because you could be my first customer on the next.
Hey,
yeah,
I'm open to that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, real quick to wrap it up, why don't you speak directly to your targeted customers, maybe on both sides? What's that pitch for them coming to Status Match, using the service?
Yeah. So travel brands, airlines, hotels, car rental, cruise lines, casinos as well. We help you acquire new high value customers quickly, cheaper, more effectively than you can in any other possible channel out there. And for travelers, so people with silver, gold, platinum, like some kind of status with an airline, hotel, or car rental, just go to statusmatch.com, register for free. And when there is something available for you that might be of interest, we just let you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mark. I learned a lot today, and I'm sure that other people did too. And we'll see everybody next episode.